I saved $100,000 for my dream wedding, but my parents lied about urgently needing medical help and spent all the money on my brother's luxurious honeymoon. My name is Charlotte. I'm 25 years old. I recently married my love. His name is Michael. He's 26. We were together for 6 years. The wedding was held at his aunt's farmhouse. It was cute, but not what I had dreamed of. I always imagined our ceremony on the Santa Monica coast. It was a special place for us. We often went there just to relax and be together. We experienced some of our happiest moments there, and it seemed logical to celebrate the start of a new chapter right there. I even started looking at hotels for our guests, as every bride probably does. I had been saving for this wedding for 5 years. I work in advertising, earning decently, but Michael and I tried to live economically and saved almost everything. We wanted a beautiful celebration with an ocean view, good music, and an atmosphere that our friends and family would remember for years. But in the end, we had to sharply cut the budget. All because a few months ago, my parents asked me for money, and I couldn't refuse. At that time, my younger brother Jacob, who is 24, had just gotten married. It was quite spontaneous, a small wedding with little preparation. He had been dating his girlfriend Emma for about 2 years and proposed just a month before the ceremony. The wedding included only family and a couple of friends, but I was genuinely happy for them because it was their day and their choice. A few weeks after their wedding, my mom called and asked to borrow $125,000. She said that Dad unexpectedly had serious health problems, claiming that doctors prescribed some rare medication that needed to be ordered from abroad because it wasn't available in local pharmacies and insurance didn't cover it. I was deeply worried. My father, John, is one of the closest people to me, and the thought that he might seriously be ill paralyzed me. I didn't ask any further questions and transferred the money. I visited them several times after that, asking to see documents and prescriptions, but Mom kept avoiding direct answers. Dad was in bed, but honestly didn't look very sick. They assured me, "Everything is being resolved at home, but the drug is very specific, hence the price." After just a few visits, it became clear that something was wrong. However, accusing my parents of deception without hard evidence was something I couldn't bring myself to do. What if everything was really serious? I was puzzled that Jacob hadn't visited our parents even once. When I asked why, Dad said he didn't want to worry him since he was young and just starting his career. Let him focus on work. This upset me. I was worried and anxious, and Jacob seemed indifferent. I called him and asked when he planned to visit. He calmly said he would stop by after returning from his honeymoon. I was taken aback. What honeymoon? Our parents hadn't mentioned it, and neither he nor Emma posted anything on social media. To my surprised question, he replied that it was meant to be a surprise. A month later, they went on a trip to Europe and didn't plan to tell anyone. But when I mentioned our father's illness, Jacob immediately called them, and they reassured him that everything was fine and nothing to worry about. He added that maybe Mom exaggerated a bit when talking to me, and that I tend to dramatize things anyway. I tried to give my parents the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe they just didn't want to worry my brother. But then Jacob accidentally let it slip. If Dad were truly sick, he would be ashamed not to be there. He also mentioned that our parents fully paid for his honeymoon. That's when everything fell into place for me. I asked how much the trip cost. Calmly, he told me at least $135,000. They stayed in the most luxurious hotels, dined at the best restaurants. Such a honeymoon happens once in a lifetime, and our parents gave us this gift, he said. That's when I realized It was my money. There were no medications, no doctors, no urgent help. Just a lie. My parents deceived me to pay for my brother's dream vacation under the guise of necessity. I was devastated and deeply hurt. I asked Jacob why our parents decided to pay for his honeymoon with my money instead of their own savings. He calmly responded that they wanted to compensate for his modest wedding, seeing it as a way to make up for the lack of luxury that day. But the money they used was mine, the savings I had for my own wedding. I had lent it believing the story about our father's illness. It felt like a knife in the back. After the conversation, when I called my parents demanding an explanation, they confessed. They had lied to me. They knew if they said the money was for Jacob's honeymoon, I would never have agreed. They told me he was struggling with work, feeling unhappy, and they just wanted him to relax and not worry about financials. They themselves couldn't afford such expenses. They claimed it would jeopardize their retirement savings. So they decided the only way was to ask me for money. They tried to seriously convince me that it made sense since I was young, earning, and had my whole life ahead to make up for it, whereas they didn't. They added that they planned to return it later and wanted me to be understanding and think about Jacob's feelings because, according to them, the honeymoon had saved him from depression. I couldn't believe my ears. It turned out I had to give up my dream wedding for a fabricated story. And don't get me wrong, if it had really been about my father's health, I wouldn't have hesitated. But this was not what I agreed to when I handed them the money. I was furious. I demanded they return everything by the wedding date. We had enormous expenses. Although Michael and his family took part of it upon themselves, I had commitments too. From the beginning, my parents stated they would either pay for college or for the wedding, but not both. I chose college and saved a loan for the wedding ever since. I asked, "What about Jacob? Did he have the same choice?" The answer astonished me. He just laughed, as if I had said something absurd. He never even discussed such a dilemma with my parents. The truth was obvious. They always placed him above me. I was just too young and too dependent on them to influence anything back then. I didn't have a stable job, and any allegations would have only worsened my situation. Silence was my only option. All these grievances came to the surface when I told them directly, "You stole my money. You again favored my brother over me." They tried to deny it, but the truth was too clear. I insisted, "You have to return everything to me. I'm not going to abandon the wedding I've planned for so long, just because Jacob has issues at work." If they were so determined to send him on vacation, they could have used their own funds. I worked for 5 years to arrange this day, and they just handed everything over to him. And do you know what they said? That they couldn't return everything immediately, they needed several years, and I would just have to accept it. Because family is more important than anything, they claimed. They even tried to persuade me that if I was willing to spend that money to save my father, why not use it to save my brother from depression? But the matter was, Jacob didn't have any depression. He might have been unhappy with his job, but he wasn't suffering. He works in sales, where everything depends on commission. If you can't sell, you don't earn. It's his personal failures, not a massive tragedy. He might have been uncomfortable, but he made no effort to change the situation. My parents always excused him, which only worsened his character. It was hard for me. I tried to explain how important this wedding was to me, that I promised Michael and his family to cover part of the expenses. I counted on my savings, but my parents just shrugged. They said, "There will be no money before the wedding. Either you scale down, or you have to ask for help from Michael's family." At some point, I even cried, begging to return at least part of the funds. Their answer was firm: no. They promised to return everything someday, but not right now. I left in tears. When I told Michael everything, he was outraged. He even wanted to consult a lawyer to hold my parents accountable, but I stopped him. There was no point. No papers, no receipts, no proof that money was for treatment. Everything was based on trust. Even if we went to court, we would spend more than we could recover. We just abandoned that idea. Afterward, Michael and I started reconsidering our wedding plans. When his family found out what happened, they immediately stepped in to help. His aunt offered to host the wedding at her farm for free. We always wanted a ceremony by the sea, but we started exploring other options. At first, his aunt hesitated, unsure whether to offer her place, but then said, "Come and see for yourselves." As soon as I arrived at her farm, I knew it was the perfect place for us to get married. Yes, it wasn't the sound of waves nor a golden beach, but it was wonderful, and most importantly, it was offered with love. We enthusiastically began replanning our wedding. Strangely enough, this process helped me take another step back, away from my parents. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't inviting my parents to the wedding. But with my brother, it was more complicated. He hadn't done anything wrong directly, or so it seemed. Yes, I was angry that he accepted the gift from our parents without questioning where the money came from, but it was hard to blame him for everything that happened. I felt torn, almost on the verge of a breakdown. But soon enough, Jacob set everything straight himself. He called after returning from his honeymoon and started reproaching me for humiliating our parents by demanding my own money back. He said he had learned everything from Mom and was angry at how I perceived it, claiming I was being stubborn and dramatizing the situation. Jacob admitted he knew the money spent on their trip was mine. He promised to pay it back someday and said I should calm down and just accept it. It was at that moment that I finally understood how I felt. Since then, I stopped talking to both him and our parents. Losing part of the budget meant I couldn't afford the wedding I had planned for so long, but truthfully, it seemed to be for the best. The ceremony we ended up having was more beautiful than I could have imagined. We had to reevaluate our expectations, and it turned out to be a true blessing. We realized the wedding should be about us, our love, not about outward glitz. We weren't the people we pretended to be for the sake of an ideal image. Huge expenses to impress others were just empty. We cut the budget and used the savings for something more meaningful. I am truly grateful for how everything turned out. Yes, there was no lavish pomp and splendor I once envisioned, but it was genuine and heartfelt. We were surrounded only by those we love and who love us. We just gathered to celebrate the beginning of our new life. Isn't that what a wedding is truly about? A few days before the ceremony, I cautioned everyone invited not to mention the wedding to my parents or brother. We were afraid they might try to interfere and ruin the celebration. Thanks to this precaution, we enjoyed a peaceful wedding, full of love and support. Once everything went perfectly, I saw no reason not to share the photos on social media. The next day, my parents and brother saw the pictures and immediately reached out, demanding an explanation. Why weren't they invited? I didn't even know what to say. Wasn't it obvious? We hadn't spoken since they refused to return my money. I left their house in tears, and after that last fight, none of them attempted to contact me. And now they suddenly expected me to welcome them with open arms? Moreover, they were offended for not being invited. First, my parents called, and then Jacob joined the conversation. He began accusing me of cutting them out of my life over some money. According to him, that was going too far. They were upset that I hinted we were no longer a family because of the loan. I had already blocked them, preventing direct contact with me. But they knew if they could reach Michael, perhaps he could convince me to at least listen to them. Now they were trying to pressure my husband. In their view, we were still family, and I was expected to act accordingly, not throw a fit over money. My parents even promised to return the full amount eventually. They asked for patience and understanding, citing challenging times for Jacob and their upcoming retirement, allegedly because of me. But Michael handled it brilliantly. Instead of directly confronting them, he pretended to sympathize and listen intently. Then he suggested they honestly and humanely explain everything and admit their mistakes. Surprisingly, they did send me a message detailing every action and every lie. Now we had official admission. Michael and I had documented proof of what happened and began preparing the paperwork to file a lawsuit. I was proud of my husband. He's quite the strategist. My father and brother, like two naive fools, wrote me a letter listing all their actions, the lies, the honeymoon expenses. We had evidence. Our lawyer had already started the process, and soon we filed a motion. We hope to get the money back soon. For some, $125,000 might not seem like a big sum, but for me, it represented years of hard work. I saved for 5 years, worked nights, denied myself vacations, and economized on everything. I won't let my efforts be devalued, no matter the cost. Afterward, we started planning our own honeymoon. It might be a short one, but by the seaside, where it all began. That place will always be special to us. Maybe later we'll plan a longer trip, but this is enough for us. The main thing is that we're together. Now we're no longer trying to impress anyone or spend money on show. We're living genuinely and truthfully for ourselves. I don't want to be like Jacob, who posted honeymoon pictures to show off. But now they, my parents and brother, are the ones facing legal proceedings. It's humiliating for them, but entirely deserved. Did you like the story? Write your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next interesting story. See you tomorrow.